This is Mike Hanawald, field agronomist with Beck's Hybrids. I'm in a wheat field tonight. This is Thursday evening, May 14th, and I'm here just outside of Waterville, Ohio, which is just southwest of Toledo. And as you can see behind me, the wheat field has kind of a orangish yellow tint to it and doesn't look all that pretty. Just a week ago, it looked great. So in the early hours of Saturday, May 9th, we had some pretty extreme cold temperatures for this time of year, with temperatures dropping into the mid to upper 20s as the low that night. And so you can see this is a weather station from Waterville, Ohio, showing from midnight until noon on Saturday. And you can see there that we were below freezing from after 1 a.m. until almost 8 a.m., so almost 7 hours below freezing. And in particular, about 4 hours from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. we were below 28 degrees. And at this particular weather station, we bottomed out at 26.4 degrees at 6 a.m. So pretty cold. Now, the general rule of thumb is it takes 2 hours of 28 degrees to kill a living plant. However, as we've seen this week in walking fields and taking a look at corn, soybeans, and wheat, there are some exceptions to that rule, and in this case, most of them should play out in our favor. So to start out talking about corn and beans, what we're seeing. Now, for the corn that was still in the ground on Friday night into Saturday, there shouldn't be any concern about that. The lowest soil temperature I could find Saturday morning was 38 degrees, which is well within the safe zone for corn that was still in the ground. Now, there was some corn that had just emerged right before the frost on Friday. And so this picture is of a corn plant that had emerged Friday afternoon. And you can see that the tip of that plant is turning yellow. This picture was taken on Monday. So 2 days after the frost, the tip of the plant had kind of turned that yellow bleached white color, showing that frost burn. Now, as we look at that corn now, took this picture here Thursday evening, and you can see that the tips are still that yellowish bleached white, but the rest of the plant that's come up has been a nice healthy green color. And so the corn that was just emerged has recovered just fine from any burn from the frost. Now, I did have a picture sent to me from Travis Brunette, our agronomist in central Indiana, and this picture shows a much more severe look at some frost damage from some corn that had germinated fully and emerged and had leafed out. And so all the growth above the ground had frosted off and looks like it's dead. However, when you dig the plants up, you can see that the below ground portion of the plant is still very healthy. And that's why our corn is very safe from frost at this growth stage, because the growing point is still well below the soil, as you can see by that arrow on the picture on the left. And so with the growing point below the soil, even though the above ground portion of the plant will die off because of the frost, the below ground will continue to survive and will begin to shoot new leaves here. And we're already starting to see that as we progress through the week. The ultimate test to know whether a corn plant is dead or alive is to dig up the plant and then split the stem in half lengthwise, as you see in that picture on your right. And if the inside of the stem at the growing point, down by the roots, if that is a yellow, whitish, or cream color, then the growing point is undamaged and should begin shooting new leaves as we have warmer temperatures. Moving on now to soybeans. We had some beans here that were just cracking the ground as we hit the cold temperatures Friday night, and that's what this picture is showing right here. Now, I know there were beans in Ohio that were further along than this, and those would certainly look different, but majority of our beans were still in the ground or just cracking the ground, and overall I'm pretty optimistic about these. In the field that I looked at, I went and found the toughest looking plants I could for this picture, and I had to really hunt and find them. But when you dig the plants up, you see that even though the cotyledons don't look all that great on the surface, the plant underneath them still looks fairly healthy. Now, with soybeans, the growing point is above the ground because the growing point is at the base of the cotyledons at this point. And so that's why beans are a bigger concern with frost damage than corn, because as we talked about with corn, growing point's still below the ground, and you can frost off all the above ground plant material in these early stages and the corn will survive. Beans, however, a little bit different story. But when you split the stems open and take a look at that growing point indicated by the yellow arrows there, you'll see that it still looks healthy here almost a week after the frost event. And so while we still haven't seen the new growth yet, the fact that that growing point looks healthy has me pretty optimistic that these beans should be okay. Now, typically by a week after the frost event, we should be seeing some new growth coming through. However, we were so cold from last Friday night through this past Wednesday morning that we didn't get much of a chance for those beans to really start growing because they haven't had the heat. And so here's some pictures to show what that new growth will look like. These pictures come from Bob Nielsen at Purdue University, and you can see there that there's a new bud starting out at the cotyledon. So these pictures, the first leaves had started to open up and then had shriveled up and died because of the frost, as you can see, but there's a new bud starting up. We compare that to a picture here where there is no new bud, and so this is kind of what we're looking for to decide if a plant is going to make it or not. Ultimately, we just need to give these beans some more time because we need this heat that's coming here over the weekend and into next week, along with the moisture we're receiving here this weekend, will certainly help get these beans up and growing again for us to make a final decision. Bottom line, if you still have corn or beans left to plant the first time, focus on getting those planted before you worry about potentially replanting a stand of frosted beans. Just give it some time, come back here, take a look, and see what we have. Keep in mind, we don't need a perfect stand of soybeans to get a really good yield potential. And so a lot of times 80 to 100,000 stand of soybeans planted early is more than enough to get good yield potential if it's a consistent stand. And so don't give up on the beans yet. Let's keep an eye on them. I'm fairly optimistic, and most of the pictures and fields that I've been in and looked at this week, I think should be just fine. Moving on to wheat. If you don't grow wheat, you can tune out because that's all I'm going to talk about here for the rest of this update. So as we look closer at the wheat, you can see obviously the tips of the leaves are yellowish brown color. This started off early in the week, first saw the symptoms of frost on Monday with kind of a purpling of the tips of the leaves, and since then they've turned into this yellowish, orangish brown that you can see here. But this wheat here is at the Feeks 8 growth stage. So here in northern Ohio, that's where we're at. As you move further south, we've got wheat that's further along. But the Feeks 8 growth stage is defined by the emergence of the flag leaf, but the flag leaf isn't fully out. And so as we look at the wheat here, this right here is the flag leaf. And if you look close, you can see that it has emerged, but it's still rolled up there at the base, and the flag leaf hasn't collared. That collar that you see actually belongs to this other leaf, but the flag leaf hasn't yet collared. So we're in the Feeks 8 growth stage. Now, according to the University of Kentucky, they have pretty extensive information on how low of temperatures wheat can tolerate at different growth stages. And at the Feeks 8 growth stage, we can tolerate temperatures down to 24 degrees. So this wheat should be okay. However, if there's wheat as we move further south into Ohio that was further along, once you get into the boot stage, which is when you can feel that head kind of in the top of the wheat plant, at that point, 28 degrees is all the lower that we can tolerate, and so there's going to be a little bit more concern there. But here at Feeks 8, we should be okay. However, how we check, the two key things we want to look at are, number one, the flag leaf. So we take a look at the flag leaf here, and you can see that that leaf is fairly healthy all the way through. We don't see any burning or any damage to that flag leaf, which is a good sign, because once that flag leaf is fully emerged and the head begins to emerge, the flag leaf provides 75% of the total energy that's going to feed that head and the grain in the head. So our flag leaf looks good, so that's point number one. So the other part of the wheat plant that we want to take a look at is the head. And believe it or not, you can actually see the head at this growth stage if you take a little bit of time. So I've got this wheat plant here that I cut off just above the ground. And as you feel up the stem, you'll find a node here, and that first one's pretty pronounced. And then as I feel up further, I can feel the next node, or joint if you call it, up about here starting to form. And so that's most likely where the head is going to be. And so can go ahead and peel the leaves back just like this. And as I peel those leaves back, you can see as it comes into focus there is that that joint there that you can now see that I've pulled those outer leaves off. And so I'm just going to pinch that off just below that joint, just like that. Now, the next step is the one that takes some patience as you very carefully peel this back. and you reveal in there the head. And thanks to the beauty of video editing, there is the head at this point that's formed and has started. So what you see there, each of those is a spikelet. Each spikelet can form up to 3 kernels, so you can actually count the spikelets and do a very, very preliminary yield estimate at this point. But the main thing we're looking for here is the health of this head, because this is obviously what's going to produce our yield. And so if we begin to see any damage to this head, any water soaking or any bleaching at this growth stage, then that's going to give us a sign that perhaps the frost hit the head and damaged it. And so what I'm seeing here looks very healthy at this point. It's a nice light green color as we'd expect it to see, and so I'm optimistic that this wheat should be okay at this point, despite the fact that the field doesn't look so great right now as you're road scouting. So ultimately, I'm optimistic for our corn, soybeans, and wheat crop at this point. I think in most cases we were at a growth stage that we should be okay despite the freeze that we had last week, and what we've seen so far this week has really helped to reassure that optimism. And as you look at the weather forecast through the weekend, we're going to have some warm weather and some rain to help get these crops off to a good start, and then looks like some really good weather continuing to stay warm in the next week, which things should really take out and grow out of any freeze injury that we have seen so far. We'll keep monitoring it. If anything changes, as Mother Nature can always throw curveballs at us and surprise us, we'll be sure to keep you updated. If you have any questions about this or any other agronomic topic, feel free to reach out to myself or your local Beck's representative, and we'd be happy to help you. For those of you in the fields planting, stay safe and best of luck to you.